So the next key element in proposal writing is the monitoring and evaluation. Now here in this element, I'll be guiding you how to develop a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation system for your projects. Here, the focus will be on the key components of a monitoring and evaluation system that will inform monitoring and evaluation planning for projects. Now, these components basically trace a logical train of thought from hypothesis on how the project will bring about change in a specific sector to the specific objectives needed for these changes. It will also be telling about the methods for measuring the project's achievements of its stated objectives and protocols for collecting and analyzing data and information used in the measurement. So, what is monitoring and evaluation? So, before going into further details, let me tell you what is monitoring. It is basically a planning and management tool which gives regular and continuous feedback that can be used to make informed decisions, manage the project more successfully, and plan for better project activities in the future. So in simple words, you are actually keeping a close eye and monitoring the progress of the activities toward a particular objective. So what do we monitor? Basically, three types of monitorings are common in the developmental work. Number one is the management and administration, where the personnel, the vehicles, the supplies, material used, all these areas. So you monitor this area. Then the finances, the budget and expenses, the salaries, the cash flows, the in and out of the money, all these things are also monitored. And the third important area is the project activities. So what are the inputs? How much budget is going in that particular project? What equipments are going to be used? What key staff is going to be involved? And what are the results, outputs, outcomes, impacts? So I'll be discussing them in detail here as well, but I already covered some of this in the previous sections. And the way the project is managed and what is the situation or the context. Now, as I said earlier in the budget section, that you will make some assumptions when you are preparing your budget. So the assumptions can be that a stable political situation or a stable security situation. Now, in monitoring, you will also keep an eye on those assumptions as well, that whether the security situation is changing or the political situation is stable or is it changing. So in the monitoring, you need to keep an eye on these external situations as well. Now when we say evaluation, so evaluation is basically determining whether the program outcomes are achieved or not and how effectively the program was implemented. So it's actually at the end of the project. Now for medium and long-term projects, you would need to consider including a plan for evaluating success at different stages, at various phases of the project. Because it's a long-term project, so you will probably need to assess at different phases where you can then readjust if your objectives have not been achieved in that particular phase. So you can readjust and modify your activities or plans if needed. Now include evaluation cost in your activity budget. So when you make the budget, the evaluation cost should also go there, and estimate your cost including the staff involved, the material, the services required, all those kind of contributions should also be mentioned in the budget. Now, you'd also need to involve the potential program participants and key project stakeholders in developing the evaluation criteria. Sometimes the funding organization would also be interested to participate in this exercise. So try to involve them. This will establish your credibility, and you would need some measurable indicators. So I'll be discussing this point in more detail. How can you establish measurable indicators for success for a short-term and long-term outcomes? Now, when you are evaluating your project success, you can adopt basically two different methods for the data collection. The methodologies are number one, quantitative, and then the qualitative. Okay, so if there's no hard and fast rule that you select quantitative over qualitative, or you select qualitative or quantitative, but it is recommended to use a mix of both, include quantitative as well as qualitative data in your evaluation purposes. For this purpose, you would need to describe how the data will be collected, what are the processes that will be applied to analyze the data and stored. So, for example, if you are using quantitative technique, so the questionnaire that will be used for the data, so the question that goes on the questionnaire, are they going to be structured or unstructured, or what kind of questionnaire are you going to be using? Are you developing a new questionnaire, or do you have an existing questionnaire available? Are you using any tracking forms or any other service utilization? So all these questions need to be answered. Now, methods of collecting qualitative data. So there are different methods where you can adopt an open-ended survey questions. You can also go for focus group interviews, in-depth interviews, utilizing or studying diaries or journals or existing forms or organizational documents. So all these methods would come under the head of qualitative data. Now try to describe how you will use and communicate the evaluation results. Okay, so you may find it helpful to develop a chart or logical model. So this logical model I'm going to show you in a few slides. So that logical model where the input should be linked with the impact, and I've already shown the logical frame in the activities section. So it's basically the same thing that I'm talking about. So the activities, outcomes and indicators, all these things should also be linked with each other. So whatever the activity you are designing or proposing, that activity should lead to certain particular outcome or output. And that outcome, how can you measure that outcome? For that particular purpose, you would need some indicators. Okay, so I'm going to discuss this in detail in the few slides. Now, what are the key components for monitoring and evaluation? There are basically 4 key components, as you can see them on the screen. So the number one is the causal analysis framework. I'm going to discuss this point in detail in the next video, but just in this video I'm just going to read out the names. These are the 4 components. So a causal analysis framework, a log frame or logical framework, an indicator matrix, and a data collection and analysis plan. These are the 4 key components of monitoring and evaluation, and this is the technique. If you follow you can prepare an effective monitoring and evaluation plan. Okay, all these components are important. Now there may be other key considerations as well. I'll discuss that later, but in the next video the focus is going to be on these 4 components. Okay, so bear with me for the next video.